Hello and welcome to this episode of the Big Rican on Sports Podcast. I am your host, I'm the Big Rican. Today is Saturday, September the 17th, 2022. It's a big Saturday night here in my house because I got the game. The Ohio State game is on right now. It's a blowout in the third quarter. I don't know why the starters are still in, but that's just me if you see me looking at the television. But on the back button is the first place New York Mets with a 4-0 lead in the seventh inning on the Pittsburgh Pirates, going for their third consecutive win after getting swept by the Cubs earlier in the week. So just had a couple of things I wanted to touch on tonight. Not going to be a crazy long episode because it's, late. It's 9:30 already. But I do want to get to a couple of things. Now, one of them is something we touched on briefly in the Buckeye preview episode that I did with Jim and Willie, which was the thing that Willie came on to want to talk about, which is the acquisition of Donovan Mitchell by the Cleveland Cavaliers. I do want to touch on the Mets a little bit. I want to touch on Ohio State a little bit, especially what's going on tonight with them against Toledo. So we're going to start with what's going on in the horseshoe tonight. Now, yeah, it's 49-21 Ohio State in the third quarter. They just had a punt for the first time they'd scored on their first 7 possessions. But I want to talk about the numbers that C.J. Stroud is putting up tonight, because he has been an absolute insanely efficient and insanely accurate passer tonight. C.J. Stroud, as of right now, is 20 of 24 for 331 yards and 4 touchdowns. Yes, you heard me right. He has as many incompletions as he does touchdowns. Look, I've said it before, I'll say it again. C.J. Stroud might be the Ohio State quarterback that goes to the next level and actually gets it done. Although Justin Fields, with what he did against San Francisco on Sunday, may be starting to turn that corner and being the good Ohio State quarterback that we hopefully, in the pros, that we're hoping to get. Obviously, with Dwayne Haskins' situations and then his untimely passing kept us from seeing him. And all the guys before them, J.T. Barrett, Braxton Miller, Cardale, they really never got a shot. Braxton, of course, switched positions going into his final season. Was a human Madden reel in college, but couldn't get anything done in the pros. J.T. Barrett never got a shot. Cardale never got a shot. So, let's see what Justin Fields and his successor can bring. Overall, my personal feeling on this team tonight, they finally got a takeaway to start the third quarter, which was great. The defense has played very well. Now they're facing a very dynamic quarterback for Toledo, more out of the run first, throw second, a lot of RPO, and he torched them for a big long touchdown. It's going to happen in Jim Knowles' defense. He has said that he's going to give up a lot of big plays, but they're not going to, the short intermediate stuff that they were turning into big plays last year, that defense comes up and hits you right away. So far, good pressure on the quarterback, good tackling in the open field, got the takeaway from the secondary. Been an okay night so far. Big lead on Toledo, which we knew they were going to have, going to end up 3-0 after this week, going into the conference schedule, which starts next week with Wisconsin, who laid 66 points on somebody today. So next week will be fun. I will do a review next week of the Wisconsin game. Did lose Trayvon Henderson after the first series of the game. He did score a touchdown and then had to sit out. But this is how deep Ohio State is. I had to look up the name of the third-string running back because I didn't know who it was. And he's been phenomenal. His name is Darren Hayden. And him and Mayan Williams have been playing great tonight. Mayan Williams, of course, is a bowling ball. Hayden is a small guy, very thick built, but he's quick. Hits the hole nice. Breakaway speed as he showed on the one long play. So Ohio State's got some seriously good dudes that back up their A-listers. On the receiving end, Cade Stover, in his return to being a tight end from linebacker last year, has been phenomenal. He's got a couple of big plays tonight. Julian Fleming finally made his season debut. His first catch was a touchdown. He's got 2 of those. Emeka Ibuka's had a big night. Jackson Smith and Jigba has played well. Marvin Harrison is once again leading this team in receiving tonight. So look, Bucks look good to start their final game of the non-conference schedule, and let's see what happens as we get into the teeth of the Big Ten, which, again, as we talked about, they play 4 teams from the Western Division. One of them being Iowa. I don't know how well Iowa will fare against this team, but let's see what happens. Wisconsin next week. So let's jump over to the other channel I've been keeping an eye on as the Bucks. Oh, almost had a safety. Let's go to the other channel I've been keeping an eye on, which is the New York Mets playing their 3rd game in a 4-game series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Right now in the bottom of the 7th, it's 4-0 Mets. Mark Canha's up at the plate with a 3-1 count, and he's got a man on third. The Mets got swept for the first time all year, the beginning of this week, by the Chicago Cubs, losing 3 straight. They've come back to win the first 2 against Pittsburgh. Here's where we sit right now. The Mets' magic number to get into the playoffs is 5. After tonight, it will be 4. Oh, good pitch. Nice hook from the pitcher from Pittsburgh. So they're going to the postseason. The fact of the matter is, they one win against Atlanta next weekend, and they own the tiebreaker. Which means, I'm sorry, not next weekend, the weekend after. Next weekend they're in Oakland. One win in that series in Atlanta, and they own the tiebreaker, which means if the Mets and the Braves finish in a flat-footed tie, which as of right now, if I had to guess, would be about 101 and 61. Mets have 91 wins. Atlanta will, if they hold on tonight, will get their 90th win. The Mets will get their 92nd. But again, if they end up in a flat-footed tie, the Mets would hold the tiebreaker. They would win the National League East. They would be the 2 seed and get a bye. Atlanta would then be the 4 because St. Louis, who is running away with the Central, we're going to touch on them in just a second, would be the 3. That means Atlanta the 4, Philadelphia the 5, and either San Diego or Milwaukee, who the Mets go to next, would be the 6. Here's what I've seen so far to the Mets this week. Jacob deGrom did not have a start like we're used to. Neither did Chris Bassett against Chicago. And David Peterson put them in a 6-0 hole in the first inning. That's going to happen over 162. You're not going to have this. I mean, even the 108-win 86 Mets lost 3 in a row. They were swept in Houston shortly, either right after the All-Star break or right before it. It might have been right after, because that was when they went out for Tim Tuffle's birthday and beat up some off-duty cops at a bar in Houston. So, here's what we have coming up. Max Scherzer returns from the IL tomorrow. On Monday. And will pitch against Corbin Burns Monday night in Milwaukee. Cookie will follow him, Taijuan Walker after him. That means in Oakland, you're going to see Chris Bassett, Jacob deGrom, and Max Scherzer in Oakland. Here's where that is a huge, huge thing for the Mets. Cookie pitches the first game against Miami at home. Taijuan Walker gets game 2. That means that series in Atlanta, the New York Mets will throw Chris Bassett, Jacob deGrom, and Max Scherzer against the Atlanta Braves, who, by the way, have a struggling back end of the bullpen. They have it up right now. Matt Olson's had 4 hits in his last 60 at-bats. You're coming down the stretch. You can't have that. So Atlanta's going to get the Mets' big 3, and then, of course, you finish the season the following weekend against the Nationals. Hard to believe we're talking about the end of the baseball season already. So that last weekend, that last Sunday night, I will send out the invites tonight. But let me give you the exact date. That last Sunday night of the baseball season is October the 2nd. Or is that when this series in Atlanta happens? I'm checking the schedule as I look here. I want to make sure I got the right days. So it's Wednesday, October the 5th is the final day of the season. That weekend after that. No, it'll have to be that Thursday night. Thursday night, October the 6th, will be the Big Rican Baseball Show, the 2022 playoff preview. I will send an invite out to Willie. I'll send an invite out to Alex, of course, from row 7. Maybe even have Jim on, and I'll see if I can get another guest lined up. Speaking of October, the 15th, that Saturday, will be the Wise Guy Sports Show 1-year anniversary. As Jim and I will have a multi-hour free-for-all. Really the best way to put it. So again, here's how the Mets break down going from here. Got one more against Pittsburgh tomorrow with DeGrom on the bump. 3 in Milwaukee. 3 over the weekend in Oakland. Home for 2 against Miami. In Atlanta for 3. And then back home against the Washington Nationals for 3 to end the season. Which is basically, I think, the 3 they should have opened the season with. If I'm not mistaken. Everybody took, with the lockout, they took the first 3 games of the year and put them on the back end. Well, the Mets would have finished the season in Atlanta. I am sticking to my prediction that I made with Willie a few weeks ago. The New York Mets will win the 2022 National League Eastern Division Championship and be the 2 seed in the playoffs. And then look out. Look out, because it's Scherzer and DeGrom. However you want to put them in Game 1, the other one in Game 2, Chris Bassett Game 3, and I think move on from there. Because they will pull the highest remaining seed in the playoffs in that first round. Which would probably mean if Atlanta gets past, or St. Louis gets past who they play, the Mets will get St. Louis. Atlanta would then get the Dodgers, who they had a tough time with this year. So yeah, the Mets are up 4-0. The Buckeyes are also up big. It's 49-21 Ohio State, 3rd and goal. C.J. Stroud's on 21 of 26 with 4 touchdowns. So, he's thrown 2 incompletions since we last spoke. So here's what the other stuff I've been doing the last couple of days. Touchdown Ohio State. That was to Emeka Ibuka, his 2nd touchdown of the night. This game's over. It's 55-21 Ohio State with 5:06 left in the 3rd quarter. The other thing I did the other night is I sat down, I watched a lot of the reaction video, and I watched the press conference to introduce Donovan Mitchell to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I talked a little about this on the live show with Willie and Jim. My opinion is this is the biggest trade since the Kevin Love trade, who's still with us, by the way. 8-9 years later, he's still here. It's the biggest move since sending Andrew Wiggins, who was the number 1 overall pick that year, to Minnesota with some other players and some picks to get Kevin Love, to bring him in, to make that big 3 of him, LeBron, and Kyrie, and have that run to the finals the first year, the championship the second year, the 3rd run to the finals, the 4th run to the finals, and now the rebuild, which has been done very quickly. I've been kind of playing in my head with how they're going to run this back. I listened to some of the things Colby Altman said. I listened to what J.B. Bickerstaff said in that presser. I heard the things Donovan Mitchell said. I also watched a Cleveland Cavaliers podcast not really watched. I was playing the Xbox and I listened to it. And I have to say, I love this move even more now. When you think about the Eastern Conference, this team was the 3 seed before the injuries and COVID, without Donovan Mitchell. But with Lauri Markkanen, who, as Jim said, was lost on the defensive end of the floor. But he was part of that 3 7-footers and 2 small guards that they could play. They also didn't have, in my opinion, a competent backup point guard once Ricky Rubio tore the ACL. According to Brian Windhorst, who is at Cavaliers camp the other day, Ricky Rubio looks great. So now you're going to have a second line with a very good point guard to go with a Karis LeVert at the 2, Kevin Love, or Isaac Okoro, or Evan Mobley, or whoever, or Jetty Osman, or Dylan Windler, whoever you play at the 3 with them. If I had to guess, Mobley's going to start. Evan Mobley, anyway. Isaac Okoro will probably start. Although you could start Jetty at the 3. Bickerstaff's got a lot of moving parts with the roster. He could potentially rotate 12 guys and keep this team fresh. This is a very, very deep team. You can and the front line can play with the second line. You can see Darius Garland on the floor with an Isaac Okoro, with Mobley, but with Robin Lopez, with Karis LeVert, like he did last year for a good portion of the year. The Cavs right now, in my opinion, and again, I'm a bit of a homer, as you see the Cavaliers logo with the Cavaliers Big Rican logo up there in the top corner right above the Mets. This team is loaded for bear, and this team is loaded and young. As I mentioned on that episode, the average age of the entire roster is 22.6. They are ridiculously young. Donovan Mitchell is 26. He's basically the elder statesman. That's not Kevin Love, of course, and Ricky Rubio, because those two guys are like father time on this team. Good Lord. Real quick, just the big game scoreboard on Fox right now. Michigan State is getting steamrolled out at Washington, 29-8. Missouri State's beating Arkansas, 24-17. A&M is up a touchdown over Miami in the first, and Oregon smoked BYU. Sorry, a bug or something flying on my nose. Oregon smoked BYU by 21 today. So this is it's going to be an interesting season in Cleveland. I firmly believe that. I honestly believe that this team is not a play-in tournament team. This is a team that will get a top 3 seed. If I had to, with everything taken into account, if I had to market out the top 4 seeds in the East next year, Boston will be one of the top 4. And I'm not going to list them in order. Boston, Cleveland, Brooklyn, Milwaukee. I do think Miami will be that 5th team. But, and here's a big but, health is a lot to do with this. Chemistry has a lot to do with this. Fitting into scheme and not telling them to get rid of your coach has a lot to do with this. So it's very possible that the Brooklyn Nets will finish in the 1 or the 5. They're too good to get into the play-in tournament, but they're not good enough chemistry and, fit of scheme-wise to get it done and be the top seed in the conference. Boston is coming off a trip to the finals. Miami went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Milwaukee has Giannis. It's going to be tough to get out of the East. The East has the power now. If they can play defense like they did last year, and you add that scorer, that bona fide scorer, this Cleveland team is going to be tough and is going to be a tough out. Speaking of the city of Cleveland, I got to give a shout out to the Cleveland Guardians, who today beat Minnesota again in a first game of a doubleheader. Let's go to ESPN to the scoreboard now because they're playing game 2 of said doubleheader. And they lead the Twins 5-2 in the 8th inning. This is insanity. When opening day came around and Willie and Natalie and I did the Shakeback, the Brothers Baseball Show, the Family Baseball Show, Natalie and I each had the Guardians in as a wild card. They're going to win the Central going away. Because they play Chicago and Minnesota, the predominant end of this season. That's the predominant part of their schedule, is those two teams. And they're beating them left, right, and center. It's unreal. The Guardians are playing out of their minds. Tito Francona should win a Manager of the Year award for, I think, the 3rd time. I am as shocked as everybody else that Cleveland is playing this way and that they are going to win the American League Central. The Yankees will end up with the top. Well, Houston will end up with the top seed. The Yankees will get the 2 and get the bye. Means Cleveland's the 3. 4, 5, and 6. I think there's a mix of like Toronto and Tampa and Seattle. The Cleveland Guardians are going to win a Central Division title in their first season as the Guardians. This is going to be insane. Tito Francona, who may step down for health reasons, is the best manager in this franchise's history. No disrespect to Mike Hargrove, the human rain delay when he was a player, who went to 2 World Series. If they keep playing this way, the Guards could get to a World Series too. So what else is coming up from the Big Weekend on Sports? As I told you, it's not going to be a long show. We're at 21 minutes, which means we're going to start wrapping it up. The Big Weekend Baseball Show, the playoff preview will be that first week of October. The following weekend, we're going to have the Wise Guys 1-year anniversary show. I will have a review show of the Wisconsin game. So here's my review of the last 2 games for Ohio State. Didn't dominate Arkansas State the way they should have. Dominated Toledo the way they should have. That's it. C.J. Stroud is going to be the front runner for the Heisman, especially after Bryce Young threw 2 interceptions today against Louisiana Monroe, I think it was. You threw 2 picks against Louisiana Monroe, dude? Really? Are you kidding me? And then we're going to have Cavs opening, which Jim and I are going to dive into the Cavaliers a little bit. I think that's going to be the one topic we will dive into during the free-for-all show. It will be the Cavaliers, because we'll be getting into the beginning of the NBA season. We're going to want to preview those guys because we're pretty excited for our season in Cleveland. As always, Big Rican can be found here on the YouTube channel, Big Rican on Sports, Facebook, Big Rican on Sports, Twitter, @Big Rican on Sport, Google, Spotify, Breaker, Anchor, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and ask Alexa to play Big Rican. You will notice, and I will say this, a lot of the stuff on Spotify, for whatever reason, is not going into the video setup, and I'm pulling it out of YouTube, and I'm sending it over to Spotify as audio only. So if you want to catch the video, which it's just me sitting here tonight, so I really don't need to worry about that, jump on YouTube if you are looking for just the audio, anywhere you can find the podcast. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. I will talk to you probably, like I said, next weekend. We'll get into what Ohio State does against Wisconsin. Have a great night. Talk to you guys soon.